Hello friends. As MPPSC mains examination date has not been yet announced, but it is mostly expected to be held in month of second half of the July. So here we are with paper 2 in mains examination, where you will be having its part A with polity. Last lecture, Mukesh Katare sir have discussed about Hindi medium polity question paper, which was subjected to fundamental rights and their features. With that, many of the English medium students were demanding for its discussion in English. So here we are showing how to write a question which will be about 300 words and will contain 15 marks. First of all, for any paper you are going to write, read the instructions very, very carefully, which MPPSC will give you on the front page of the question paper, because many a times we often do mistakes, like we don't read it, we taken it for granted, like okay, we have read in a previous question paper or when we have solved them as solved papers. So do read it very, very carefully, each and every single point. Now, today what we will discuss are what are the fundamental rights and their features. See, from this topic, a 3-line question, if it comes, then it will be relating to fundamental rights only. For suppose they will ask Article 14 or Article 16, but when we talk about its limit of 300 words, then this question will be or may come in the form of what are fundamental rights and what are their features. So let's discuss it. So the question is, what do you understand or what do you mean by fundamental rights, and explain their features. So for any answer you are writing, whether in its 150 marks or 300 marks, the two components which are, I think, most fundamental and which are most important to make your answers much and more scoring are introduction followed by last conclusion. So these both components, do remember, they will definitely give your answer a sense of completion, and no doubt you will get more good marks. So with starting in its introduction, here we have written that rights are such situations and states of life which are basically important for the development of a personality. See, here personality means to make an informed citizen, to make a responsible citizen, right? To whom? For yourself. So, fundamental rights are those situations and states of life which are basically important for any person living in a country to make a good person. In India, the demand for fundamental rights was raised even before the constitution was made. That means when a constitution was made, it was not suddenly that demand for fundamental rights have started. It was a gradual process with the development of constitution. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel put a proposal for the making of constitution rights in Karachi session 1931 of Indian National Congress. So see, here it is a short trailer of the movie, like your answer, where you have shown about the scene of fundamental rights, right? So it could be a historical purview, it could be a total definition of fundamental rights, whatever you want to give in introduction. So like introduction, what I mean to say, it should be like, it should be like limited in words, so that anyone who is reading your answer can get the information in concise, for which you are going to explain something. Okay, now moving ahead, its meaning. Now, fundamental rights are those rights which are compulsory for people to live a dignified life. See, here it is shown that they are those rights, those fundamental rights, those basic rights which are compulsory for any person to live a dignified life with respect and with dignity. Thus, they are provided by the country's constitution. States are not given authority to make any sort of interference in them. Here, states or state means Article 12. what the definition we read of state in Article 12, that is, the state could be a country, a state could be a particular state, an individual, an organization, anything. So what is defined in Article 12? Here we have defined it as state. So state cannot make any sort of interference in fundamental rights. They are the most basic features which are given by a country to its citizen. Now, the word fundamental, what does it mean actually? Why are they not called only rights? There are so many rights which a citizen gets when he live in a country, like basic rights. We can classify it into legal rights, right? So why they are called fundamental? So the reason why they are called fundamental are, first, they are necessary for entire development of a person, like mental, physical and civil. It's written civil, I take my words back, it is moral or ethical. Okay, so do correct it. First reason why they are called fundamental is they are necessary for entire development of a person. Like entire development means mental development, physical development and ethical. Earlier I have already said that a person, a personality, a good personality means an informed citizen. An informed citizen can be made with all the awareness, with all the sense of responsibilities about his duties towards the nation and society. So mental, physical and ethical. Now the next reason we have given here is they are kept in the basic or original law of the country. Here the basic and original law of the country means the constitution, the supreme body of law, or we can say in short the supreme law, that is constitution. So they are kept in the constitution. They can only be amended by constitutional amendments. Means if state, that means if parliament can, if parliament wants to make any sort of amendments without affecting its basic structure, it means fundamental basic structure, if it wants to change any further positive amendments, then it can make, but without affecting its basic structure. Okay. Now they can be violated by executive, they can't be violated by executive and legislature. Means legislature, that means the body which make laws. For instance, we say parliament or state legislature. And executive means the body which implements the policies and laws made by the legislatures. For instance, we can say the entire administration. Okay, so they can't be violated by any of these. Next is, one can appeal directly to Supreme Court in case of any sort of violation of these rights. Moreover, Supreme Court preserve these rights. That means Supreme Court is the custodian of our fundamental rights. Okay. It can interpret the constitution. It is the final interpreter of the constitution, as we know. So whatever given in the constitution, we are talking about here fundamental rights. So fundamental rights, if someone violates or someone take your fundamental rights from you, you can appeal directly to Supreme Court. You can go directly to Supreme Court for the violation of your fundamental rights. So these are the reasons why these rights are called fundamental. Okay. Now comes the features of fundamental rights. What are the features? See, in half of the answer we have shown here that what is fundamental right, what are the necessities for fundamental rights, and why are they called fundamental rights. So half of the question was what are fundamental rights. So we have answered it very precisely. Now the next question in this question is what are their features. So half of the answer, that means you have to complete it in 300 words. So approximately 150 words you will be covering for the first part of the question, that is what are fundamental rights, and next 150 word limit you will be covering the features of the fundamental right, which is the second part of the question. So features, when we talk about, first feature comes broadest bill of rights. It means here the bill word is mentioned which is related to the constitution itself, or which is related to the part of the constitution itself. That means rights which are written or given in form of fundamental rights are the broadest. That means part 3 of the Indian constitutions mention the fundamental rights. These rights are lengthiest from any other country's rights, which have total 23 articles. So here it means broadest means the quantity of rights, the number of rights which the Indian constitution has given to us is the broadest. Its first feature is this. That means it ensures the total number of 23 articles under fundamental rights. Okay. Next is they are realistic or practical. The fundamental rights of the constitution are not only directive but also practically implemented. They constitute a compulsory part of social life. I'll repeat the sentence. The fundamental rights given by the constitution are not only directive but practically implemented. That means they are not only behavioral in theory, they are not only theoretical but also practical. We do not read them, we do not only read them in any book or barrack or any other source, but they are being practically examined, they are being practically implemented on the citizens of the country. So they constitute a compulsory part of social life. That means any human being, if he is living in a society, for a social being, for a person to be social, these rights are practically being implemented. Implemented by whom? Implemented by the government, implemented by the constitution, ensured by the constitution. Okay. Next feature is limited and not autocratic. Fundamental rights are limited or bounded on the basis of unity, but they are not absolute. What does it mean here? See, they are limited, like means fundamental rights are not unlimited. Obviously, they cannot be unlimited, because if they are being unlimited, it could give rise to the misuse of these rights, and it would be, I think, impossible for a country with huge population to implement so many rights at a single time. So fundamental rights are limited and they are bonded as well. Like for we say they are bonded means they are legally bonded. No one can violate them, as we have earlier discussed over in the answer. So they are limited or bonded on the basis of unity. Okay, but they are not absolute. That means they show the no one or no state can dominate any person, can show their autocracy over a person on the basis of fundamental rights. So we have discussed the line that earlier, that to live a dignified life, okay, life with free will and liberty. So these rights are limited but not autocratic. Now, next point is conservation or preservation of fundamental rights. Another feature. Article 32 of Indian Constitution provides the reservation of fundamental rights. Preservation of fundamental rights. That means they protect your fundamental rights. Which protection they gives you? Via Article 32. That means we read about writs, types of writs. There are 5 types of writs mentioned in Article 32. That means you get some kind of those rights, those fundamental rights which protect your personality, which protect your fundamental rights entirely, to live a free life, to live a life without any legal autocracy. According to this article, one can appeal into Supreme Court or Higher Court to ensure the fundamental rights. See, we know about 5 types of writs: habeas corpus, mandamus, quo warranto, then statutory and prohibition. So through all those 5 writs, we can ensure our fundamental rights. Whatever mentioned in different writ, you can explain it over here if you want, but that would be, I think, more lengthy. So just if you have mentioned Article 32 over here, it is well understood that Article 32 entirely covers all those 5 writs. Now, moving ahead, no space for natural rights. Part 3 of the Indian Constitution, which deals with fundamental rights, do not carry any natural rights provision. For example, right to laugh, right to cry, etc. See, the word natural rights, what does it mean? Fundamental rights are those rights which are given to live a dignified life, which are basic fundamental to be a responsible citizen. Okay, we have read this, we have understood this. But what does it mean by natural rights? Natural rights means any right of a person which comes it naturally. Like laughing, it is a natural. No one can stop you from laughing. No one can stop you from crying. No one can stop you to show your emotions, or right to expression of what we read in fundamental right about right to expression, speech. We read it, we understand them very carefully. So natural rights is what that means. Natural rights are those rights which brings a naturality in a person, which generally or which naturally comes over from a person. So fundamental rights do not cover any such natural right. Now, the second point is they ensure the sense of equality among all the citizens of India. That is the most basic fundamental point, or you can say the most basic fundamental feature of the fundamental rights. Sense of equality. We live in a country with a huge population, and we know about the problems of gender inequalities, जैसे हम भेदभाव बोलते हैं, untouchability in the form of untouchability, or on the basis of gender, sex ratio, or whatever. So sense of equality is more and precisely can be ensured by fundamental rights. So what are the fundamental rights given to a man, or a male will be given to a female also. So there will be no sort of discrimination among them when it comes to fundamental rights. Next feature is they provide religious rights to the citizens. Of course, India is a country with great diversity from the religious point of view. There are so many religions in the country. There are so many people with different belief and thoughts, with different ways and methods to connect themselves to their supreme power, which we call it God. So it provides religious rights to the citizens as well. Okay, so these were the features of fundamental rights. Whatever you can add more, if you have much time and space, you can add them. Now, as I have told earlier, that you have to write introduction and conclusion in your answer to make it complete. So do remember, conclusion is must. So what conclusion we can write over here is, see, question has not asked about any limitations, about any criticism or any sort of discussions, so that you can give if you think there are some limitations for fundamental rights, or there are some advantages, they doesn't matter over here in this question. So a simple conclusion you can write over here, that fundamental rights, thus fundamental rights, or you can start your sentence with, like, in a nutshell, fundamental rights are those tools provided for the citizens by a constitution, by the supreme law of the country, which are most basic in nature. They provide all the rights which a person must gain, or which a person must get to live a life with dignity and sense of equality in society. Okay, so any sort of conclusion you can make, but the conclusion must be something which you want to give a message about. There should be a simple message in the conclusion. So moreover, you can write also that fundamental rights must be implemented without any biasness or without any partiality. So in a democratic country like India, where the democracy has been adopted along with the parliamentary system, every citizen has its fundamental rights to be adopted and to be exercised. So I hope this answer would help you, and many of the queries of English medium students would have been solved over here. Next video I will try to make over more answers regarding this topic. If you have any doubt, you can put them in comment box. Thank you so much, and all the best for your examination.